energy is the idea in physics that gives capacity for work. So if you have work in physics, you need energy as a prerequisite to generate work. Now, why am I starting with this concept? I think we often forget about what we actually do as humans, particularly when it comes to engineering and technology. What we're doing, in essence, is we're applying the laws of physics for our purposes, and what we're really doing is work. And work is moving stuff, whether that is electrons or molecules or air or hydrocarbons. We move stuff, and that is in essence what the Industrial Revolution has started in the 18th century, moving, I think it was pumping water out of mines, and that just continued until today. We're moving electrons around in data centers. I want to say a few things about money now. Money and physics, when they come together, that's when wealth is created. And I think finally we have a business case for space, and we have a business case for robotics. We were struggling with both of these concepts for a while. We're Tesla investors. We're not invested in SpaceX, and we're not invested in X, but we do follow the Elon companies. And we were always a bit skeptical about the space business. Now, Starlink certainly has proven that there are ways to make money on the way to Mars. But I kind of got an inspiration from Joe Bhakdi, and kudos to him. He, in one of his podcasts, he spoke about this, and he said, look, finally, we have a money-making purpose for space, and that's why space is going to happen, because humans need the incentive of making money. That's when humans are driven to get things done, and the money-making purpose is AI data centers in space. Now that's a big umbrella for a lot of things and a lot of problems to be solved. Fundamentally, what Musk is trying to achieve and SpaceX is working towards is to get to higher levels on the Kardashev scale. How can we harness more energy from the sun? And Earth is certainly one way to do it, but Earth has problems, and whether it's the NIMBY problem, whether it's simple things like, why don't we just build gigantic solar panels in the Sahara Desert? Well, because those places are crazy. I mean, you can't put billions of dollars into a country like Algeria or Libya. It's just not gonna happen. And you could say, okay, fine, how about the Nevada desert? Yeah, well, maybe that would be an option. But even in the US, like, do you want to commit billions of dollars? The NIMBY problem, transmission lines. Well, why don't we just go to space? So that's fundamentally the reason. So the reason is not that we don't have enough energy on Earth. The reason is that we have a lot of political problems on Earth that can be solved by going into space. And then we also can harness a lot more energy because we have abundant solar power, and we can cool much more efficiently, so we don't have to waste as much energy while we're running these data centers. So that's the business case for going to space. And again, kudos to Joe about that. Now, about the work part, and that's where Optimus comes in. I was struggling for probably since 2023 when Optimus was launched, of what the purpose of Optimus is. I understand why Optimus is being produced at Tesla, because it's an adjacent project to the car and the FSD. It's the same problem. It's a robot on legs. But I was struggling with the business case, and the business case now is becoming abundantly clear to me, and that is basically, all the work that needs to be done in space for data centers can be done by Optimus robots. Now, you could argue, well, I mean, why is that needed? Like Starlink's working without robots. That's true, but I mean, once you start building AI data centers in space, it's not just satellites, it's gigantic data center. It's GPUs or something along those lines. It's radiators. It's solar panels. They need maintenance, and we could have an army of Optimus robots, moving around space and fixing stuff. So that's fundamentally the way we see the use case for Optimus, and I think that's very exciting. So when money is to be made, people get excited. They don't get excited about people aren't curious, and it's one thing I've learned about the book Taipan, which is the exploration of Asia and Hong Kong by the Brits in the 19th century. The Brits weren't driven by curiosity. I mean, there was an adjacent part of curiosity, Darwin and people studying plants, and or von Humboldt, the German biologist who studied plants. I mean, those people were curious, but the main fundamental reason why Europeans were exploring the earth was for money reasons. When there is money to be made, people get excited, and I think the same applies to space. So we have a business case now. We have AI in space. The economics are questionable, but they're going to be getting better and better because of Moore's law and Wright's law. Actually, Moore's law is almost going against it, but Wright's law is going for it, and that's really exciting. So we have basically work to be done in space. On the one hand, the AI training and inference, particularly the inference, and then the other is all the maintenance and construction that needs to be done, which will be done by Optimus. Now, before I go, I just want to say a few things about what is actually the reason for inference. Why is inference such a big problem? Well, you can think about it this way. Training and inference potentially will converge anyway, and that's kind of what Richard Sutton's idea is, and also Musk's ideas. So that distinction probably will go away. But I think ultimately you need inference to make AI commercial, right? Without inference, there's no AI. There's no point of training models if there's no inference. So inference is kind of like the purpose, and it's highly likely that we will find a lot of use cases for inference, and therefore we need a lot of use cases for training. And I think that will converge towards some sort of model like Richard Sutton presented recently at NeurIPS. Fundamentally, why we're going to space is it's a cost calculation, like everything in economics. And what you have abundantly in space is three things. You have space, you have energy, and you have cooling. Okay, so basically you have energy one way or the other. So you have a lot of sunlight, which can be used to move electrons, to generate data, to train data center. And then you have cooling, which cools down the data because moving stuff around is the most energy consuming part of data. I guess last thing I want to say is the idea of Buckminster Fuller, that we should tie the dollar to kilowatt. It's an interesting idea. He came up with that in the 1970s when Nixon went off the gold standard. I just want to say a few things about that. I think tying your money to something like energy is a very, very good idea, because it has two things. It's not deflationary like Bitcoin, so you don't run into the question, at least, what happens to a society that has deflationary money, and you certainly don't have the problem of printing money also. But the point is, you could actually grow your economy with energy, which is really what in the end, that's what you're really buying, is energy. Now you're buying it in many forms, because, like I said in the beginning, work is a corollary of energy. So without energy, there's no work, and that's what you're really buying as a human. You're buying work. You're buying jobs, which is almost always work. It could be digital work, virtual work. You can watch a TikTok video. That's work. It's done by GPUs, but it's still work. Or you can buy a plumber fixing your toilet. That's work. Like, you buying work. And the more energy you have, the more work you can buy. So therefore, the more money you should have to buy that kind of work. So it's an interesting idea. I want to float it and discuss it later. It's not part of this podcast. I think the purpose of this episode is just to give, I think, to release a very important episode, because I think finally we have a use case for space, for Tesla's chip design teams, and for Tesla's Optimus build out. We're very, very committed to Tesla because of that. We have a very high cash flow expectations in the next 2 years coming from Robotaxi, and we can deploy that cash flow right into Optimus. So there's very high likelihood of high appreciation of the stock going forward. Thank you.